Sharon.
Good morning, Jody. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and
Good.
you?
Well, thank you.
You look like you slept well.
I did.
And woke up to no hot water in Regina.
I know, but beautiful outside.
You
So-
live in the first floor of Regina. Second floor of
second,
Regina.
Yeah.
And Sharon Beckmann,
Mm-hmm.
I just found out that it's not spelled Beckman.
No.
It is Beckman.
N. Right.
And what's the story of the double N's?
Well, from what I understand, my dad was in the Army in 1940, and Mom had to work in a factory, plus she had Jim and I, who were 4 and 5 at the time. And because we were at war with Germany, et cetera, World War II, Mom just felt that Beckman with the 2 N's would be too obvious.
Too German.
Right, that's right,
Mm-hmm.
because she worked in the factory and there were things going on all the time. So she dropped the N, and then when I was a junior in high school, my brother Jim was graduating and they checked all his records for spellings and that. And Jim said to Mom and Dad, "What is this? Why are they asking how we spell our name?" Well, then Dad told the story that Mom dropped the N to try and hide the Germanness, I guess, but at a time when it was important.
Did your dad see active service in World
Yes,
War II?
he was in the Army, and they marched for 2 weeks and found camps, and then one of the nights the place was bombed, and Dad was in a Jeep with another person. Well, he was in the back with another person, and when the bomb hit, they were toppled over, and when Dad woke up or was woken up, the man was on top of him, and he was deceased, and Dad was hurt in the ankle of one of his,
Shrapnel or something.
Right, it was. Mm-hmm. And he suffered with that for many, many years. Well, all the years after that.
What an experience.
Right.
But what I feel so, what's so admirable about that is that he shared that story.
Right, right. Yeah, Dad didn't talk much about the war at all until I was a junior or senior, something like that. And only once we were at the table, and it was just Dad and I, and I don't know what moved him, but he said, I was taught in the Army to kill a man with my 2 thumbs. And he said, in all my life, I was told how evil killing someone was. And I could just see he had never been able to resolve that in his mind.
Agony, for sure.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Sharon, where was home?
Oh, I'm from St. Joe, Michigan. And when I was 2 and 3, we lived in Benton Harbor, and then we went to St. John's for 1st and 2nd grade. And then we moved to St. Joe because after whatever I'm sorry.
Okay. That's okay.
My father helped to build a home for us in St. Joe, and we lived there for like 30-some years. So.
And is that where you met up with the Adrian Dominican?
Right. In 3rd grade, we moved to St. Joe, and that was the Adrians, and I was there through high school. Yeah.
Was Sister Marie Martha part of the faculty while you were there?
She was. Actually, I want to mention also because Imelda Horbeck was my sponsor, and she came when I was in 9th grade, and then in the middle of the year, she was moved to seniors in this high school, and then Marie Martha came in and was there for a year and a half, and that's where I found my love for Shakespeare after I went through a couple of days of really crying because I couldn't understand the language. I guess I thought it was some other language. But she helped me to really understand and enjoy Shakespeare. And she was such a lady, just such a lady. I don't remember it was either that year or the next year, I got in trouble in the class with a couple other people. And so Marie Martha sent us out. Well, as we got to the door, a good friend of mine, Karen Spangenberg, turned and said, "Sister, I'm sorry," and then walked out. So I figured I better do the same thing. So that's when I learned that I needed to apologize when,
And she was so gracious
Oh,
about
she
that.
was.
Yeah.
She was, yeah.
Well, you're lucky to have such a great teacher, because I've
Right.
heard her
Yes.
reputation
She was
precede.
a marvel, yeah.
So you talked about a brother, and
Right.
did,
Jim and I was the second of two for 9 years. And then Mom and Dad had my sister Marcia when I was 9. And 11, Joe came around. And when I was 14, Terry was born. And then when I was 18, Mickey was born. And then when I was 21 and on mission, my sister Kathy was born.
Oh my.
So we're like 2 or 3 different families, same parents, but yeah, right.
And do most of them live in the Michigan area now?
Right. 2 of my brothers, the oldest and the youngest, have died, but my brother Joe is still alive and lives in St. Joe. And then my sister Terry and her family live in Three Rivers, Michigan. And my sister Kathy and her family live in Coloma, Michigan. And my sister Marcia lives in Eau Claire, which is 5 minutes out of St. Joe.
Well, they were here not too long ago when
Right.
you had some medical challenges, correct?
Right. Well, 2015 is when I had my stroke, and that was the biggest. I mean, it took me a while to recoup, but I had wonderful care here. I couldn't ask for more, and the women that helped me in several months on 3rd floor of Maria were wonderful and so patient,
Well, you'd never know,
Right,
seeing you and
right.
hearing you today,
Well,
that
thank
you
you.
suffered
Yeah.
that stroke.
Right, and then 2016, I woke up one day to find out after I came I came alive again, so to speak. I was in a diabetic coma, and had no idea I was diabetic, and I was in my 50s, 60s, something like that. I don't remember age anymore, but and then and was in Maria for 4 or 5 months with that. Got out and then had throat surgery, and I was on 2nd floor of Maria at that time for that in 2016. And then in October of 2016, I had my heart attack. And since then, I've been wonderful. So, yeah, God is good.
Yes.
And really, the care that I've had and the nurses and doctors, I have no complaints at all. In fact, nothing but gratitude.
Well, it also takes a very positive
Yeah,
attitude
thank
on
you.
your part.
Thank you.
And I mean, you always have a smile.
Oh, thank
so
you. Yeah.
That's a gift to all those who are lucky enough to cross your path.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your years as an Adrian Dominican were spent in education, correct?
For the most part, right. And I taught, I entered in 1958 and was in the Chicago area after Rockford Loves Park, because that was my first place. And then into the greater Chicago area for 11 years. And then after that, I left the congregation for a while.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Interesting.
right. The first place that I was at was Loves Park, Illinois.
Was that Father Gordon?
It was, and his sister, I can't remember her name, but she was one of our Adrians. She used to come and visit a lot and cook and bake. She was wonderful.
A laywoman.
No,
No,
she was
a
one.
nun?
He was an Adrian.
Oh.
Yeah, but I can't remember her name. Sorry, and I should.
I remember
But-
Catherine Jordan, but
No.
no.
And then my second place, and probably the first place that I really loved after my first place, was St. Celestine's in Elmwood Park. And that was right in Vatican II era. And then the changes in the church. And as Adrian, we were allowed to go into homes and to do meetings. Our CFM was one that I remember. I was very involved because of church. I was church.
That's okay.
Sorry. I was teaching second grade, of course, first Eucharist, and at that time, confession was all really important. And then with the changes, First Communion became a pleasure because families were involved now much more than they ever were before. And we had a dynamic parish, and Father Phil Neenan was the pastor, and he was great. He was very good for me when I left also. And then Father John Price was a very good friend and really taught me a lot. He ran the religious ed program. Well, he was there, and then we ran it. But he was excellent too. And again, the people were wonderful, and the kids were wonderful. It was a good time to teach.
Well, you mentioned that you left the congregation.
Right.
That was, I believe, around 1970. So it was after Vatican II.
Right.
But you came back.
I did. Thank you. Well, God brings you back whether you're ready to go back or not. And really, it was a gift for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was back in Chicago as a laywoman, and one day I got a phone call. It was from Sister Rita Eileen Dean, who was principal in Hayward, California at All Saints. And she said, I've missed you since you've left. Can we get together? So we just talked and wrote a couple times. And then a couple years later, she invited me to come for vacation at Easter time and stay with the nuns. And I think I was there for almost 2 weeks, and it was wonderful. But the day that
That's okay.
Rita picked me up at the airport, and I think I got there about 11:30 at night, and then we rode home to Hayward, and we sat up and talked until 2 or 3 in the morning. During that time, Rita said to me, "Have you thought about coming back to the congregation?" And without a thought in my head, I said, "Well, I've thought about it."
Mm-hmm.
And from that night, she said, "Well, would you think we could ever talk to the provincial at the time and see what she has to see if there's any possibility?" Well, from there, we went to that meeting the next day, and at the end of that, when we were outside, I said to Rita, "Okay, Rita, I came here for vacation, not vocation." But it was a great time. And then within 2 years after that, because of Rita and then I had asked to live in community, but Rita was the one that said, "Why don't you come to California, teach for us," and so on and so forth.
And you lived right with the sisters then.
And
How
then
wonderful.
I said, Rita had suggested that, and I said, "Well, I'd love to do that, except if that's going to happen, I don't want the kids to know I'm not a sister. I know I'm not a sister, but I didn't want to deal with kids' questions nor the parents' questions." And because of Rita and Father Deck Hecht and the nuns at the convent, I was given permission to stay there with that understanding. And anyway.
So the students called you sister then, or the parents
Yes,
called you
they
sister?
did. Yes, they did. And there was never any mention about anything.
Oh, how comfortable.
Right.
Yes.
And it was because Rosemary Ferguson was her last year there, and though she had hesitation because things had happened before that didn't work out, but she said because everybody else agreed she did, and I was grateful. And I was grateful to know her hesitation because that helped me also.
So was it during Rosemary's term as prioress or the following prioress, Carol Ioannis?
That was her last year that we were finishing up, and then she made arrangements that I would come that August, and Carol Ioannis was prioress then. And then through Carol, that first year that I would talk to her and so on and so forth. And And I kept saying to her, and I had great doubts about returning, but I knew I had to try it because something was bothering me. Well, after that year, I said, the congregation said, okay, we'll give you, how about a year of service in Adrian? I didn't have to do a novitiate. I was grateful. Yeah. And then at the end of that year, it was Carol Ioannis who said to me, you know, Sharon, a vocation is like a crab on your foot. You can't get rid of it. Because really that's what happened. And really, I am grateful.
Oh,
yeah.
And we are grateful.
Oh, thank
you. We are grateful,
thank
too.
you.
I first met you when you were directing the Adrian arm of the development office.
Oh,
you know,
right,
the Mother
right.
House arm.
Yeah.
And organizing all volunteers. So
right.
thank you for that
Here on
service.
campus, yeah.
That was a good time, wasn't it?
It was a great time. And now I can't remember who was in charge. I can't
Adrian
think. Adrian,
Schaefer.
yeah. She was wonderful to work with. And then, of course, she was off campus and we were on campus. But it was, and truly, that was also the time with the investigation
of religious communities.
And the people that would call in, both Catholic and non, would praise us and thank us and send gifts, money gifts to the congregation. They were so good to us. And when that all cleared up, it was a gift. I mean, truly, it was hard at the time for many of us, but it was, well, you know.
Well, it's like the people, I mean, we were in the news.
Right. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And a great appreciation.
Right.
I remember one note, the donor saying, I'd rather give it to you than to the parish.
Exactly, right. You know, and people who were not Catholic would say, thank you, we're sending this, we're not giving it to our wouldn't give it to their church either for whatever their reasons, but would send it to the sisters who appreciated what was happening.
A sign of support, that's
absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah.
You've had the privilege during your life of working with some fine priests.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I suspect at this point, when you look back, you had some favorites.
Oh, absolutely. I've got to say, I've been in many places, have had some really good people to work with, both religious and lay and priests. But the two places happened to be the same place 10 years apart. I went to St. Joseph's in Fremont, and it's Mission San Jose is
California.
In there. Right, is California. And my first time there, I helped build up the religious ed program for over 400 children and families, and it was a gift. And I had many, many catechists who were willing to share and help with each other, so we started doing monthly meetings, grade meetings, and it was wonderful. Talk about being blessed, bringing in the people who did the work, and I was just there supporting them, and that was a gift too, you know. Right.
And who was the pastor at the time?
Oh, sorry. Father Michael Nurkett had just come there, and he was just very supportive. Wasn't sure about me, but was pretty. He was there.
A diocesan priest?
Yes, he was. Yeah, and then that's where I met my very best friend, Donna Alberti, who was a laywoman. She married, had children, who her youngest two were in religious ed for grade school yet. That's where I got to know her. And then she was one of the many fine volunteers who then we set up a wonderful program for the junior high kids. Wow. And we had all the kids in all the grades do service of some kind for the poor for the year. It was a great time to be there. And then that was in the 80s. And then in the 90s, I went back to St. Joseph's, and it was then Father Manny Simas, or Manuel Simas, and Father Jason Lendeza, thank you, who was wonderful in that he taught me how to really minister for people who had deaths of families or whatever. And he was such a model and so much fun, and he knew so much, and he still is now, you know, but I haven't seen much of him since I've been back in Michigan.
Well, I hope he hears this tribute.
Oh, I
to
hope
him.
so too,
Yes,
right,
yes.
yeah, well, he was friend, he was, you know, colleague, and then teacher.
If you could go any place right now to live and, you know, be among our sisters, would you choose California?
I would, and I would say in the area of where the people I know, when really Donna and her family have been with me. I mean, I've been with them for years and years, and I go back and visit, except in 2015, 16, I haven't been back, so.
And now my ignorance, is that near San Jose,
That's-
California,
Yes, well.
or Santa Cruz?
No, it's St. Joseph's Parish in Fremont, California, but the mission San Jose is there, the mission itself. And that's where people get mixed up. They're looking for San Jose, and we were in Mission San Jose.
Well, is Fremont in the middle of the state, or?
Well, yes, well, yeah, because then, now, see, I can't remember names anymore.
That's
but
okay.
that was the end of the diocese, and then we went into, I can't remember the next, sorry. But anyway, it's in the middle of the state, yeah, right.
But the weather and the water and
And being in the near the ocean was wonderful, and people were. I mean, every place I've been at, it's been marvelous. People are marvelous.
Sharon, some people may remember you as Sister Therese
Michelle.
Michelle.
Right, that's right.
Beautiful name. How did that come about?
At the time that I entered and we got to choose names, the only one that I really wanted was, I wanted Therese Michael, but she was still alive. So that was not going to be an option. So I changed to Therese Michelle. And that's because my sister Terry was the youngest girl at the time, and Michael, was my youngest brother at the time. So that's where I got the names, right.
Were you one of the young nuns after profession that stayed in to study?
Yes, I was. There were 25 of us that stayed in. Many of us worked on the switchboard. I was one of the few drivers. And then we went to school with 20-some hours each time. And then we were, in the evenings, we were cleaning Regina, the building, Regina building. It was brand new at the time.
The students lived, high school students lived there?
No, it was empty. It was a brand new building at the time, and we literally cleaned it. I mean, from the floors up, and then helped move the bids and everything in. It was an interesting 6 months.
Labor.
Yes, right on. And that was the time when Sister Clarita Marie was in charge of the young black veils. And she and I didn't get along well until she was in an accident with Sister Patrick Jerome.
An automobile?
Serious one, yeah, very serious one. And I met her at our, what do we call?
Infirmary?
What building are we in right now?
St. Clements.
Yeah, that's when she was there. And that's when I got to know her, and she got to know me. It was a gift, you know, good lady.
She really was injured, seriously.
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
she?
In fact, all her face was wired inside, and she had 2 buttons up here. And then, anyway, but she came through it and was well for many years.
Did Sister Patrick Jerome spend time in the hospital, too?
She was there for a couple of days. She was really banged up, and when I saw her, it looked like somebody had a 2x4 and just swapped her all over the face and the arms, and she looked so black and blue. It was awful.
Well, we give thanks for those
Thank
women
you.
of yore that were so important in our life.
Right.
And special thanks at this moment to Rita Eileen.
Absolutely.
I presume she was in your crowd.
Oh, yes, and we were good friends, and really she's the one that brought me back.
Yes.
So, and she's a gift.
Well, thank you for
Right,
today.
thank you.
God bless you for your presence among us. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the gift of being with you.
Yes.
Thank you.